Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ask Dr. Nick. My name is Dr. Nick Schmidlkoffer and I work for the Neurologic Wellness Institute here in downtown Chicago. And today's question is going to be, why should we avoid eating processed foods and vegetable oils? And this is a really, really big topic. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about because I love nutrition. And processed foods have a lot of added preservatives that can obviously make them shelf stable, but are not good for our health at all. And these processed foods include sugar, our table sugar, salt, which salt is generally okay, but then mainly vegetable oils or processed oils. And these processed oils or they say that they're shelf stable, but really they aren't. They basically just make the product good from going rancid, but the oils themselves will become rancid. And the oils themselves are not good for our health. The main fatty acid in that oil is linoleic acid. So we're going to talk a lot today on like 4 different articles about why linoleic acid is not good for our health. And linoleic acid is in these vegetable oils, in sunflower oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil, soybean, corn oil, canola oil, all have a lot of linoleic acid. And I'll show a table of those here at the end. But before I do that, all of these different oils are also located in these processed foods. And so we want to avoid cooking with these oils. We want to avoid eating high amounts of these processed foods. And so let's go right away into the first article. So the first one here, we got 5 articles. The first one is the increase in adipose tissue, so the increase in fat tissue with linoleic acid of U.S. adults in the last half century, okay? And so this article is dated, here's the Advanced Nutrition in 2015, okay? So here they say linoleic acid is a bioactive fatty acid. I want to show you a picture of this here in a sec, but let's just look at this. Linoleic acid is a bioactive fatty acid with diverse human physiology and pathophysiology. It's a major dietary fatty acid, most abundant fatty acid in adipose tissue, where concentrations reflects dietary intake. So if we eat more linoleic acid, we get more in our fat tissue. Over the last century, dietary linoleic acid intake has greatly increased and has shifted towards these polyunsaturated seed oils, such as soybean oil, these vegetable oils. And this shows here that adipose tissue linoleic acid has increased 136%. That means it has doubled plus some, 136% over the last half century. And that increase is highly correlated with the increase in intake of these oils. And so let's just look at a graph. And so here this graph shows from 1955 to 2005, the increase in linoleic acid in the fat tissue of adults has gone from about 10% up to 25%, about 22% here. When they're looking specifically, so that was more like subcutaneous tissue. When they're looking specifically in adipose tissue in the buttocks and abdominal areas, it is again about the same thing, 10% to maybe 20%. Okay, so again, it has more than doubled in about 50 years. Okay, let's go down a little bit farther. This graph shows that linoleic acid in the adipose tissue, the percent of it found in that tissue, is also increases with the amount that we intake per year. So as the intake of linoleic acid, the dietary intake from these vegetable oils has gone up, it has caused the adipose tissue in the to retain more of that linoleic acid. And I haven't talked too much about why that is a bad thing yet, but I'll show you here at the end. The first thing is that linoleic acid is highly inflammatory. It is an omega-6 oil. So not those omega-3s, but it's an omega-6 oil. And that can cause a lot of problems. Okay, so let's go to this next one. And so actually, let me show you what linoleic acid looks like. Okay, so we're just going to skip ahead quick. Linoleic acid is this long fatty acid, and it has multiple double bonds. There's 2 double bonds here that are 6 carbons. So each one of these points is a carbon. It's 6 carbons away from the end. That makes it an omega-6. And these double bonds are susceptible to oxidation. Oxidation is what happens when oxygen, which we need to live, binds or interacts with other areas that are a little unstable. And so this causes these like OHs, or these oxidation reactions. These oxidation reactions cause more free radicals and oxidants to be produced that cause inflammation and damage to our cells. Okay, so we're going to come back to this paper here at the end. So with this oxidation reaction, we know that if we have high amounts of linoleic acid, it causes more of this oxidation. But lowering our dietary intake of linoleic acid can also reduce these oxidized linoleic acid metabolites. So this paper is just looking at what can we do if we decrease eating this linoleic acid, these vegetable oils. And so it's a direct precursor to oxidized linoleic acid metabolites. Okay, these oxalams, okay, oxidized linoleic acid metabolites, have been shown in many pathological conditions ranging from cardiovascular disease to chronic pain, also elevated Alzheimer's, dementia, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, which is basically liver disease. And so what happens here, and they can be lowered with chronic headache patients, okay? So lowering dietary linoleic acid significantly reduce the abundance of these plasma oxalams, basically these oxalams, oxidized intermediates in the blood, and therefore reduce the linoleic acid content in the lipid fractions, and therefore not getting kind of stuck in any arteries, not causing any damage. Okay, so let's go down to this picture here. Okay, so again, linoleic acid, here it is. When it's oxidized, it becomes these different oxalams. Okay, and again, these oxalams are not good because they are causing more inflammation, more damage. Okay, so now, why is this important? Why is not eating vegetable oils important? This paper is called "The Effects of Macronutrient Distribution on Weight and Related Cardiometabolic Profile in Healthy Non-Obese Chinese." So it was a 6-month randomized controlled study. So 6 months is a long time, especially for a randomized controlled study in humans. It doesn't happen very often. This is from 2017, okay? And we'll talk about some main points. So what they did here is the traditional Chinese diet was likely to be more effective than a higher fat, low carb diet when it comes to weight loss, is what they're studying. Because they say, well, Americans eat a higher fat diet, and that is going to cause a problem with weight loss, actually cause weight gain. And so they're studying basically 3 different diets. And so it was, again, a 6-month test where they took young, healthy adults, 18 to 35. They first checked to see how many calories do these people generally eat, and they tried to give them the same amount of calories. So it was an isocaloric study, meaning that they all had the same amount of calories. They just had different macronutrients, one high carb, one low carb, and one moderate, or high carb, low carb, moderate fat. And so they're required to eat only the foods that were provided and avoid excessive, unusual, strenuous exercise. Okay? They had one of the 3 isocaloric diets: a low-fat, high carbohydrate, which was 20% fat, 66% carbs; a moderate fat, moderate carbohydrate, which was 30% and 56%; and then a higher fat, which was 40% fat, and then carbohydrate was supposed to be lower, which this isn't really low in my opinion, but 46%. Okay, protein was all the same at 14% of the energy intake. Body weight was the main outcome, but they looked at other measures as well. So there was a reduction in the body weight, but significantly greater in the lower fat, higher carbohydrate group. All of them lost weight. All of them lost weight because they weren't fed enough calories. But the reduction was significantly higher in the lower fat group. Well, I want to show you that it's not based on the fat versus the carb ratio. It's based on what fat they were given. And I will show you this here at the end. They also saw that the where was this? Sorry, I did not highlight this part. There was a reduction in the waist circumference, total cholesterol, lower density lipoprotein cholesterol, and high density or non-high density lipoprotein cholesterol in the lower fat group. So it improved cardiometabolic numbers and they lost more weight. So let's go right down to what this one looked like here. So here are the diets. Here are the example diets menu for a female, okay? And if you look, everything is exactly the same in the low fat, moderate fat, and high fat group, except for the amount of soybean oil that they were eating. So for breakfast, the low fat group did not have any soybean oil, no linoleic acid. The next one did 20 grams, and the next one had 38 grams. And then when we talked about lunch and dinner, the options that had more soybean oil, 8 grams only for the low fat group. The moderate fat group, 8 grams, 8 grams. And again, the high fat group, 8 grams, 8 grams. But if you look at everything else, they're all the same. The only thing that was changed was this first one at breakfast. The people had these moderate fat cookies had more soybean oil. The ones that had high fat cookies had higher soybean oil. All they did was change soybean oil. And again, if you look down here, right here, sorry. So the overall mean change in weight. So the one that is the gold here is the high fat, high soybean oil. The moderate soybean oil is going to be the red, and the blue or purple is the low soybean oil. They lost the most weight. They had the most circumference lost off their waistline, and they had the best cardiometabolic outcome. Okay, crazy. All based on how much soybean oil was fed to them. Again, decrease the amount of linoleic acid. That's going to help that's going to help overall outcomes. Now, this last one is a study. It was published in 2013, but it was based on the Sydney Diet Heart Study from the 1960s. So the use of dietary linoleic acid for secondary prevention. So these people already had a stroke or cardiovascular disease, of coronary heart disease, and death. Evaluation of recovered data. Okay. So again, they looked at recovered data from the 1960s. Okay. What this intervention was a replacement of dietary saturated fats. So saturated fats are like linoleic acid. It's the same length, but it has no double bonds. They are not susceptible to oxidation. So we said they took out saturated fats like animal fats, margarine, shortenings, and they gave them omega-6 linoleic acid from safflower oil or safflower oil polyunsaturated margarine. And they looked at all-cause mortality. They looked at different other outcomes. And the intervention group, so the people that were given the linoleic acid had higher rates of death than the controls, had higher rates of cardiovascular disease, so again, 17% to 11%, cardiovascular disease 17% to 11%, coronary heart disease 16% to 10%. And then when they redid a updated meta-analysis, there was a non-significant, so it wasn't significant in terms of scientific protocol, but a non-significant trend towards increased risk of death from coronary heart disease and cardiovascular disease. And so even though there are a lot of these dietary guidelines that are trying to substitute polyunsaturated omega-6 linoleic acid for saturated fats, the clinical benefits are not there, okay? And they just aren't. Okay, so what I wanted to show you here is where are these fats located? Where is linoleic acid located? And it's located mostly in vegetable oils, these cooking oils. Safflower oil has 74% linoleic acid. Sunflower oil has 65%. Cottonseed 51, corn 53, soybean 50, canola 18. All of these oils are highly processed vegetable oils that contain a lot of linoleic acid. And then this alpha linolenic acid, this is an omega-3, so it's not as inflammatory. And there's none of it in these oils, a little bit in soybean, but not a lot, and then some again in canola oil. But these oils, safflower, sunflower, cottonseed, corn, soybean, canola oil, are my do not ever use list. And they're a lot of times located in processed foods. So eliminating as many processed foods as you can just eliminate these oils. Other better oils are like olive, butter oil or just butter, and coconut oil, which all have less or fewer amounts of this linoleic acid, 9.8%, 2.3, 1.8. A lot better, more stable oils to have. And then let's go back to that picture that we kind of started with. Linoleic acid, when it becomes oxidized, it becomes these oxalams. These oxalams are packaged in these lipoproteins. These lipoproteins are like LDL, which is the quote unquote bad cholesterol. We're not going to go into that, but when bad cholesterol, this LDL, becomes oxidized, that's what can lead to more coronary heart disease. And so this leads to endothelial activation, lipid accumulation inside these blood vessels, leads to immune activation in these foam cells, and then it leads to these vascular smooth muscles that then squeeze tighter and then lead to more blood pressure or higher blood pressure and decreased blood flow. Okay, so sorry that was a lot. I'm sorry that we went through a lot of nitty details there, but I really wanted to show that linoleic acid is not good to be in our diet. We need small amounts of it. It is an essential fatty acid, meaning that we have to get in our diet, but we do not need as much as we're getting from vegetable oils. And that is truly what's causing our obesity epidemic. It's truly what's causing our high cardiovascular disease rates that we're having. And so I really wanted to emphasize this and show that we really got to do something better to get rid of these. And that's where linoleic acid, just a side note, are also highly located in a lot of nuts, especially almonds. And so again, almonds aren't bad. They're not as bad as these vegetable oils, but of course we should not be eating them like they're candy and eating all the almond butters and the almond milk and almond flour as much as we might be doing right now. So I know this was a long one. I hope you guys learned something about it. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. But moral of the story is stay away from vegetable oils. Again,